as you've been following, our concern has been the various petitions we got from Dr. Besigye and Lutale themselves, the lawyers, his personal lawyers, including Elias Lukwago and Martha Karua, senior counsel. Elias Lukwago was abducted, and right now we know he's in custody, even with his ill health. Martha Karua, senior counsel, was also lead counsel, was denied entry into the country. She was in fact declared persona non grata. They did reach out to the Law Society to help them and assist them in ensuring that they continue representing Dr. Kizza Besigye. Dr. Kizza Besigye himself and Lutale wrote to the Law Society. They've given us about 3 petitions concerned, complaining about the way their case is being handled, the fact that their right to a fair hearing is not being recognized, is not being respected by court. So you noticed last time, or the prayers that Dr. made himself, his lawyers were not in court because they are worried about their safety. If others are being abducted, others are being threatened, others are being intimidated, it was a concern for them, because it looks like for you to represent Dr. Kizza Besigye, you're going to be taken to the basement the next time. So that was his concern, and if he rightly and correctly and informed court that he filed an application 248, which is an application to do with the safety of his lawyers, to do with his legal representation. Court needs to resolve that before the case goes on, because you cannot continue trying someone who does not have legal representation of their choice. So last time you saw how the judge made a ruling that he should be given a list of state lawyers on state briefs, so that he can choose from that. Those are not necessarily lawyers of his choice, and he clearly informed court today. You saw that he received this list yesterday at 6 p.m. and today, not surprising that we had 3 members of the bar who are already there for appointment, saying the registrar has appointed 3 lawyers to represent Dr. Kizza Besigye. You cannot force a client, you cannot force someone to be represented by a person they're not comfortable with. Someone has a right, according to Article 28(3), the person has a right to be represented by a lawyer of their choice. Now, that the issue, and Doctor rightly, as someone understands his rights, is saying, listen, I need time, I need to have my lawyers of my choice. You cannot force me, to be represented by lawyers who are paid by the state. So our concern still is, court needs to handle this with caution. Even if you're saying we're appointing lawyers on state brief, we're giving a list to choose other lawyers. He has his preferred lawyers. The most important thing is court determining or resolving that issue of why his lawyers, the selected lawyers, are not in court, and what should be done to ensure that the lawyers are safe. They're in court, they're not being intimidated, they're not being harassed, and they are able to appear in court and represent their client. That is his right. That is equally a right of lawyers, because lawyers have a right to practice the profession of their choice, free from intimidation and harassment. So that's the point we're making, and as the National Bar Association, we are concerned by this kind of situation where a person who has a case in court is being pushed to the corner to accept to use other lawyers, not lawyers of his choice. It doesn't matter whether there are 7,000 lawyers or there are 700. The person has a right to choose the lawyer of their choice, and I want to believe that Dr. Kizza Besigye still has that right. Even if they've presented lawyers, he still has a right to say, no, I do not want those people. I want a lawyer, I want such and such a lawyer, and court must respect that. That is his right, absolutely. You notice I talked about the petitions we've received as the National Bar Association. That is why we've picked interest. That is why we are here, to ensure that we will bring an end to this kind of situation where people's rights are not respected. Dr. Kizza Besigye, we've seen other political prisoners, and the fact that the judiciary is failing to do the noble duty of respecting the rule of law and due process, they're becoming complacent. It's like what the state wants is what the judiciary is doing, and we do not agree with that. We absolutely disagree with that, and we shall not rest, we shall not sit until we see proper procedures being followed. Dr. Kizza Besigye, being the person he is, you heard him raise his voice, rightly so, demanding for his right, and all we are saying is these people's rights, doctors' rights, must be respected. You cannot force a trial on someone and say, we must try you like this. Someone has to have, the person who is charged with an offense has a right to a fair hearing. That is very important. That must be protected. Well, we have the Judicial Service Commission. That is their role. That's the mandate of the Judicial Service Commission. But as you notice, we've been having our fights with that institution because currently we have a commission that is not properly constituted because it lacks the two representatives from the Uganda Law Society. And we've seen them go ahead and, appoint judicial officers. We've seen complaints filed in the Judicial Service Commission for disciplining judicial officers who are failing to do their work, but we've also seen the ineffectiveness, the dullness of this commission, the fact that they're not doing their work. And these are the wars we've been fighting. We actually filed a case here called challenging and halting, requesting the Constitutional Court to halt, to stop the Judicial Service Commission from doing whatever they're doing because it is illegal, the fact that they're not properly constituted. But we've also seen the judiciary frustrate that. So I think this is really the judiciary that is on trial here, because we've been talking about the independence of the judiciary. Is the judiciary really able to perform their role as an independent institution without, falling for executive overreach? But again, we are seeing a situation where the judiciary is in bed with the state, with the oppressor. They are lacking the human rights-based approach, which we think, in fact, the judiciary should be on the side of the people, on the side of the citizens, because ultimately they are supposed to serve members of the public, they are supposed to serve the citizens. So the mechanism is there, yes, but the challenge is we have an ineffective mechanism. I don't know if you've come across anyone, if you've seen the Judicial Service Commission, presenting a person, a judicial officer who has been castigated or punished for their wrongdoing. That is where the challenge is.